Well, thanks everybody for inviting me to this. I'm lucky enough that I get to actually see a lot of talks, different talks on sustainability. Some of them I do myself, and some of them I'm sitting in the audience. And when I first started to talk about sustainability, that was about 20 years ago, and it was not as much of a popular subject within the business school or the business world where I came from. It was an odd topic. It was a topic for NGOs. It was a slightly different kind of topic. But what I'm very happy to tell you is that the talk has changed over time. And I think one of the interesting things about it is that now we hear CEOs really consistently talking about sustainability. And what do they say? Well, this is an Accenture survey that was launched in the earlier part of this year in New York City at the UN Global Compact Conference. And 1,000 CEOs agreed, 84% of them, by saying that sustainability needed business to lead. So business should take the lead on sustainability. One of the difficult things, though, that CEOs talk about when they talk on how they should lead is that they actually think they're not leading. Only 33% thought that business was actually doing enough on sustainability. So what we have is this situation that the talk on sustainability is there. We're talking about it here. But what we're saying is it's urgent. We sometimes talk about doom and gloom, but we're saying we're not getting there, and big CEOs are saying the same thing. So we can see that we really have an issue on this. Now, there's many reasons on this. Now, there's no doubt about it that the marketplace is a key driver of sustainable efforts in certain situations, but it is absolutely a barrier to change. We know that the market is a powerful framing for our work as executives, and we know that CEOs really do pay attention to the market. There's very few of them that are brave enough to actually delay earnings because they're going to do a sustainability investment. So we know that's a major reason, but that's not what I want to talk about. In fact, I have a much more simple story than the revolution of capitalism, which is a much more complicated subject and you need another expert in. My topic is really about time, and where do we spend our time when we talk about sustainability, and what are we doing? Now, probably what you'll say we're doing is we're doing this. We're doing screen time. It's an old image. That's one of the original iPads, so it's not the minis where you see most CEOs using now. And there's no doubt that we do use technology, and it does drain our time. It also increases our time. Some of you may be following what's happening in the COP meeting in Warsaw on climate change, and you're getting all kinds of stories, Twitter feeds, Facebook tweets, and that's good. So actually, in fact, screen time is both a useful energizer of sustainability efforts, but it is also something that takes us away from what I think is one of the most important drivers of sustainability, and that's nature. I travel a lot. I'm often actually in taxis, I'm in airports, I'm in meeting rooms, I'm in auditoriums, and I talk a lot and I hear a lot of people talking, but where we are not, very rarely are we actually in nature. Now, in 2005, Richard Louv came out with a great book on the nature deficit disorder in children, saying that what we can see is that many children out there don't spend enough time in nature. What I am suggesting is that both myself and other leaders in sustainable business are also not spending enough time in nature, and I think that matters. Now, we know from Environmental Protection Agency data that 90% of Americans, the average American spends 90% of their time indoors. In the UK, every day, UK citizens spend only 17 minutes outside. Now, here in the Netherlands, we might spend a little bit more time outside because we're biking into work, if we're lucky, unless it's raining, and maybe some of us then don't bike. But the bottom line is that we spend most of our time inside. Now, who cares? Maybe we don't care. Maybe it doesn't make a difference. But actually, the psychology in the data show that it does make a difference. When you are out in nature, even if it's nature in cities, even if it is just on your way to work on your bicycle, what you can do is you can problem solve better, you are more attentive, you have less fatigue, you have less stress, you have less burnout, and you have absolutely a deeper, enhanced connection to the natural environment. So one of the things that environmental psychologists do is actually test things. So they test things inside, outside. What's the difference? How does it make a difference? And they do most of that data with things like recycling, so small-scale behaviors on environmental issues. And we can see that even if I show you pictures of trees, you will start to actually change the way you answer questions on sustainability, on recycling behavior. But actually, if we were actually outside right now, we would have a whole different kind of conversation. And how do I know that? I know that because I do a lot of my work outside. Now, this is an image that I took when I was in the Amazon looking at FSC certified logging and illegal gold mining that's happening in the Amazon. If I want to talk to a logging company, I don't want to just talk about numbers and charts. I want to take them there. I want to show them the mercury ponds of crap that actually exist in the middle of the Amazon, and I want to link it into the logging roads. The best way to do that, the most impactful way, is for me to take them directly. The second best way is for me to start to show them pictures, and absolutely an additional way is to show them that the market is going to penalize them for that. So I don't argue that the marketplace is not powerful. I simply say it is not the only driver. I also do work in the Arctic. I spent 2 years living in the subarctic when I did my PhD field research, and this is where I really learned the power of being outside. I studied local people and how they made sense of ecological change in a very pristine wilderness area that was impacted by large-scale hydroelectric. And I discovered that they could make sense of subtle changes in the natural environment because that's all they paid attention to. They were not paying attention to the marketplace, but they were paying attention to how ice changed and how ice flow shifted over time and how just basic ways of living changed because of different development models. I think the interesting thing from this photograph, and I'm in a helicopter doing ice reconnaissance with a group of scientists, is that it shows the Northwest Passage in Canada is largely ice-free in 2010. We know in 2012 it was completely ice-free. That's hugely impactful when you're actually up there looking at it. When you're looking at this, whether you're live stream or here in this room right now, it's a little bit impactful, but it's not the same thing, and that's my point. Now, most of the time I said I travel around and I listen to people talking on sustainability, and sometimes I'm that speaker. I was in Istanbul 2 weeks ago for a very interesting conference with the World Business Council on Sustainable Development. They launched Action 2020, their new cutting-edge strategy on how to scale up business solutions for sustainability. It was electrifying. There was 50 CEOs in the room, 300 to 400 other executives there, everybody trying to do more than they can. But this is what the room looked like. It looks like this, and this is what most classrooms look like. As a business professor, this is where we teach. We are a long way from the natural environment, and nobody says that makes a difference, and I don't believe that. This is my classroom. For 7 years, I have said, I'm not teaching inside. After I lived with indigenous people and I was outside every day, I thought, actually, I can do this. I can do this in the snow. I can do this in the hail. I can do this on a sunny day that it's very beautiful. This classroom is here at Erasmus University, 5 minutes away at the Arboretum Trompenberg, and I've taught 300 plus students there. Now, what do they say? Well, they say all kinds of stuff. I have them write field diaries for me, journals, and they participate and consider how does the actual classroom change the dialogue. It changes it significantly. They are more creative. They're more energized. They don't want to leave class. So unlike other classes in an auditorium, people are waiting for the bell. They're out of there. They've got to go do something, get a coffee. My students don't want to leave. It's a lovely environment. It also means they have to pay attention to the weather. Because let me tell you, when you're outside and you're not dressed well, you're damn cold. So it's a whole other context that you're actually aware of the state of nature. If there's going to be a storm surge, well, you're going to pay attention to that. You're not going to say, we're inside and what is the weather? How do we control it? It's a very different context in which we operate. So I believe, and I've seen this with indigenous people, I've seen it with executives, and I've seen it with my students, that direct embeddedness in nature makes a difference. It changes the way we think about things. We are more creative. We see problems differently. It changes our emotions. We become attached to things. I asked my students on the day 2 of the program, I give them an exercise. I say, imagine this garden that you've never been in is going to become a parking lot. Now, can you write me the business case, pro and con, for that development measure? The students are consistently outraged. They can't take the garden that only like 3 days before they'd never seen, never heard, and had no emotional bond. It really works. Being outside changes sustainability talk. We're biophysical creatures, and ultimately, I believe it changes the way we actually act. This is a beautiful room, and this is where we are. It's not my photograph, it's a photograph to actually show how gorgeous this new student pavilion here is at Erasmus University. It's CO2 neutral, it is a gorgeous space, they have locally grown food here, and I have to say I'm a big supporter of this building. But when the TED organizers asked me to talk, I said, really? I have to come in and I have to talk in here and it's dark and the only green I can see is the escape at the back? That's the exit sign. And I said, let's do it at the Arboretum. It's 5 minutes away. Let's do it on the pond that's outside. Let's do it there. Now, I do appreciate, because I teach outside a lot, that it is difficult logistically. What if it rains? Well, we'd have to cancel, or we'd have to wear umbrellas, or we'd have to do something. And the decision was, no, we couldn't go outside. We can't go outside, And then I said, can I bring nature in? Can I bring in some acorns? Can I bring in some leaves, a whole bunch of leaves? Can I have a wind machine? And we'll see if we're Super Typhoon Haiyan. Can we do something like that? And I don't want to point fingers. I'm only using it to illustrate that the answer was no. We can't bring in nature, but what we can do is bring in a potted plant. So I would like to talk now about the potted plant effect. Drum roll, please. We have a spot. Ta-da. Clap. Yeah. So this is a potted plant. It's actually an evergreen. It belongs outside, so I brought an outdoor plant, put it in a pot plant, and then I'm going to put it back outside another time. I got it for the Arboretum because I thought, if we can't go there, please let us bring it here. Now, potted plants are good for us. They certainly add some ambiance. What else do? They help air pollution, so that's good, and we know that air pollution is a problem in many buildings that are toxicity. But I don't know about you guys, but for me, this doesn't, really cut it. This is a plant. This is decoration. Let's just say. So then we thought, what else could we do? And we thought, okay, let's go back to the Arboretum, and we have Fatih, who's helping me. He's my special assistant on planet Earth. Yay, hello, Fatih, welcome. Now, we have all kinds of plants. A lot of these are indoor plants, and maybe some of these you would find in more of the tropical regions down here. But, let's look at it. Well, I can touch it. It makes a difference, perhaps a little bit, but this is not a rainforest. This is not a watershed. This is a very small, odd decoration that I have brought in to really illustrate the fact that in this room, you have spent 3 hours without any kind of nature except yourselves, because we are nature. And you might not believe that it makes a difference, but if I took you to the subarctic and I had you look at a glacier and you could see where it used to be and where it is now, you would have a different emotional connection to this topic than if we sat looking at a bunch of plants. So, how I really want to close is to challenge you, and I'll challenge myself, is the next time you're asked to spend 3 hours listening to a talk on sustainability across a whole bunch of speakers, just ask yourself, why are we talking inside? Thank you.